Hello. It seems like we've been working up to this forever, but we're finally at the 12 comma rules in our punctuation unit. So in front of you, you'll see a document that is on Blended Schools for you. It gives specific examples and definitions for each of the 12 comma rules, as well as extensive explanation. On the next page, you'll also see the semicolon rules. There really are some. And you'll see some advice for you there, as well as a chart of how to use these conjunctive adverbs. That's what you're going to see on Blended Schools, but I also have a little PowerPoint for you, so hang on. Oh, good, you're still here. Okay, well, what we have right now is a little PowerPoint to illustrate our rules, so let's get right to it. Rule number 1 is our compound sentence rule. We've already looked at this many times as the IC comma conjunction IC. If you recall, our conjunctions are and, but, or, for, nor, so, and yet. Okay, so you can see the conjunctions there at the bottom. On to the next one. Rule number 2 is the introductory dependent clause. We've gone over this one multiple times as well with your DC, comma, IC. So you always put a comma if it's at the end of the dependent clause, but if you were to reverse the order, you would no longer, most likely, need that extra comma. In the third rule, we have our introductory words. Putting a comma after introductory words. Sometimes it's hard to figure out what introductory words are at the beginning of a sentence, but generally you're going to recognize them. After all, for the most part, you'll see them in some other examples as well, and that'll give you a clearer picture. Noun of direct address. This is when someone is actually speaking to you in a sentence, and you want to set off your name so that it doesn't become part of the sentence. So, Carly, clean your room. Appositives. We've also talked about these quite a bit too. Now, appositives do not contain verbs, so keep that in mind. An appositive can be just a simple word, like Joe, comma, the boy, comma, or two words in that case. Or it can be an entire phrase. So Mrs. Leonard, comma, the teacher of the students, comma. So you want to put your commas on both sides of an appositive. Okay, our next rule is number 6, dates and addresses. The only important part to point out to you here that you may not know is that if your sentence continues, you do use this comma after the year, and if the sentence were to continue beyond Pennsylvania, you would put a comma here as well and then keep going. And you can see when you're doing a snail mail kind of address, the format that is given here. Number 7 is parenthetical expressions. These, again, you're going to just kind of have to get a feel for them and recognize them. But, for example, is a great one. Sometimes even however can be used as a parenthetical expression. Our next rule is the quoting rule. We're going to use our dialogue that we're familiar with from earlier in the year. So we have here the yellow commas, which are the dialogue commas. So fiercely exclaimed, comma, and then we have you ever, comma, asked Jane, comma. Now, if you see a couple of other commas here, and this one, well, these two rather, are the appositive commas around Patrick Henry, which refers back to the Patriot. And then, of course, we have a compound sentence here. Give me liberty, comma, conjunction, or give me death. All right, we're on the home stretch now. The next rule is the series rule, and you're going to use a comma between words or phrases in a series. If you'll look on the right-hand side, you have a multitude to choose from. We have adjectives, nouns, verbs, and even verbals. We'll have a unit on verbals coming up in the near future. Notice that the Oxford comma is in use here. That would be the comma right before the and. After kind, after actress, after swam, and even after eating. One of our last rules is the clarity rule, or when you would like to clarify something. You can't always define this kind of rule, but if you know that you need a comma and none of the other rules apply, there's a sure bet that it can be the clarity rule. It's uncommon, but it is used. So for example, when the girl, not the boy, ran for class president, that kind of defies any kind of other explanation, but you just know that you need a comma in there. With number 11, we have our non-essential clauses. We've talked about these as well, and if it's an essential clause, we don't need the commas, but if it's a non-essential, in other words, unnecessary or not needed kind of clause, then we do indeed use the commas. Finally, I know that there are 12 rules on the sheet and 11 here. We just combined the series rule. Previously, they had just been adjective series and then every other kind of series, and just for your convenience, they are together here. So don't forget, let's eat, Grandpa, not let's eat, Grandpa. Thanks for listening.